Hi, welcome to Cinemascene on WGWG. Gardner Webb University is where we are coming with this show as always. Cinemascene, we talk to filmmakers. We give you movie reviews. We talk about major hot topics in the industry. And today, very, very happy to have an incredible actor. Mahershala Ali is our guest. And let me tell you a few things about Mahershala, and if I'm wrong on these, you got to call me on them, okay? You got to call me on them.
Okay.
All right. From what I understand, from Haywood, California, a suburb of Oakland.
Yes.
You were an
Yes.
expert cyclist as a kid, or a BMX kind of biker. Is that right?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
all right, and you got some of your acting chops taken care of when you were doing some work with the California Shakespeare Theater. Is that all correct?
Yes.
Wow.
California Shakespeare Festival. Yes. Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
man,
That's good.
I'm 3 for 3. I will stop at that. I don't, if I've got three home runs right there, I'm in good
All
shape.
right.
Man,
Yeah.
thanks for
Well,
being
thank
on our
you.
show.
Oh, it's a pleasure getting to talk with you. I appreciate you having me.
Man, your career is pretty amazing. You've got so many different things under your belt. The first time I saw you back in 2006, the 4400 TV series,
Yeah.
and then the next time I remember seeing you was in one of my all-time favorite films, The Curious Case of Benjamin Buttons.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But man, it's continued. You've been involved in the Hunger Games films, House of Cards, some great work in House of Cards, Luke Cage.
Thank you.
Man, what an amazing role you had there as an antagonist. Hopefully we'll talk about that. In 2016, it continued with feature film work with the Free State of Jones, Hidden Figures, and, of course, Moonlight. Tell me, what is it that brought you into this industry, coming from, once you realized, okay, I've peaked as a cyclist almost, what is it that brought you into this acting career?
Well, just to go back quickly, so I raced from when I was 4 to 10.
Yeah, 10.
And I was, 4 to 10 years old, and I could turn pro. Well, because it was the ABA, American Bicycle Association.
Right.
I was a BMX racer.
Right.
We had sponsorship and all this stuff, and this was early on in that. In that sport, like in the sport being organized. And it had been organized for probably 10 years prior to us getting into it.
Okay.
But so I was 10 years old, and I was 2 years from turning pro. My cousins who raced as well, who were a couple years older than me, one of them was pro. And I was on that track. I was doing the best that you could possibly do before you turn pro. Like, I couldn't go higher than what I was or where I was at. And so I started playing basketball, though, and that's where I saw sort of more of a future for myself, and just your interest changed. Look, I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And then so I started doing really well in basketball, and that's actually how I got to college, to undergrad. I got a basketball scholarship.
Okay.
So in my time in college is when I sort of discovered theater. That was an interesting experience. I think I was thinking back. There was several things I could have did better, for sure.
Right.
But I think I found myself a little bit disappointed in the collegiate experience.
Okay.
And which worked out for me because I discovered writing and theater and in a real sort of peripheral way. But then it became my focus. So I walked out of undergrad right into California Shakespeare Festival, which led to me getting into the New York University, NYU's graduate acting program. So I've been really kind of doing it since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how it played out.
So at what point in college, was it in college that you realized that you not only loved this, but you had a gift or a talent that you've developed for it?
Well, look, we all need our mentors,
Yeah.
our sages, those people who support us in some way, even if it's just a comment, like a teacher that you really look up to, and they stop and say, "Hey, you're good at this," and because you don't know, you just do whatever comes natural to you. At least I didn't, and so I had a teacher who wrote me a card. Actually, I'm looking at it right now, but 20 some odd years ago. 20 years ago, wrote me this card and told me that she'd seen me in this play. I did 2 plays in college, and she didn't know what my plans were for after undergrad, but if acting was in those plans, that I needed to be around the best teachers and students I could find.
Wow.
And so that became the impetus for me to really commit to auditioning for graduate school.
Yeah.
And I got into, at that time, what was the best graduate acting program in the country, because it was NYU and Yale always flip-flopped and went back and forth. So
Yeah.
I got in NYU at that time. And so that's really been the difference for me. So it was just positive feedback, honestly, between a professor I had named Victoria Trussell, who was in the communications department,
Yeah.
and an acting teacher that I had at St. Mary's College as well, named Rebecca Engel. That kind of between a small group of professors were the ones who kind of nudged me in that direction.
I think you really hit on the aspect of the importance of finding those mentors, or as you said, the sages in our lives, and recognizing them and then celebrating them after we have found that way. And I can look back in my life and there's the same way. And man, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think many times those professors or those who are serving in that kind of leadership role and in parenting to an extent someone else, sometimes they don't really get to see the fruits of their labor, or they don't get to understand how much it's appreciated. So I appreciate you sharing that. I really do. I really do. Well, man,
I appreciate them, because they own so much of what is happened for me, and family too. Family and friends, because they have to sacrifice so much for you to pursue, especially in this business.
Yeah.
For you to, when you start having success and parts flow your way, and it just means you're gone a lot. It just means you're away.
Yeah.
You're not able to connect in that same way. And they've been supporting, at least I'm speaking for myself, I've had a small group, a small circle of friends, and who have really supported me. My best friends and closest friends, none of which act. They're just guys I played ball with and who I grew up with, and it's only a handful, and they've been supporting me from day one. And the thing is, though, that I don't get to really see my mom or my grandmother, or I just don't, because I've just been so busy. Yeah. But I know that they are supporting me from a distance, and sending good energy and prayers and all that my way. And it requires a lot of your friends and family and professors and people who have really kind of helped you get your start.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a sacrifice for them in some ways too.
Yeah, but they make such a huge impact. They really do. Well, man.
Yeah.
I know we've got just a few minutes, but I do want to talk to you about a couple of roles in particular. Your role in Luke Cage. Man, what an interesting antagonist that Cottonmouth was. And there was this deep love of music that he had as a character, and I think music in that particular series, it plays a very strong supporting role throughout the entire series.
Absolutely.
Is music something that connects to you personally as well? And if so, how does that relate in the roles that you're able to be a part of?
I think if Cottonmouth and myself had any real similarities, it would be our love for music.
Okay.
Maybe not the same type of music per se, but music is definitely a great love of mine. I love sharing music. I love finding music. I love talking about music. I'm a bit of a collector of old hip hop stuff, and even the stuff that people would sample in hip hop and rap that were the records that inspired some of these songs and whatnot. I've always been into that, and in a way that, and honestly, coming from where I've come from and in the generation, hip hop really saved a lot of lives and really gave kids who otherwise didn't have an opportunity to do much of anything else. It gave people a place to express themselves and to put their energy and a creative energy. It created a lot of jobs, and so I have a really deep tie and appreciation and love for hip hop and for music in general. And in terms of like characters, so the first thing, I've talked about this a lot, but it's just true. One of the first things, if not the first thing I really do, after reading the script and saying yes to a job or whatnot, or being offered a job, is I begin to put together a playlist of things that speak to that character's experience, perhaps in the film, or the energy of that character, things that I feel like he would listen to, and really try to capture music that exists in the time of that character and before that character. And in some ways, it helps me lock into some sort of feeling or sense of that person's kind of wavelength and vibe and whatnot. And it just helps me. And it's different from the stuff that I'm personally listening to at that time. I try not to mix the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely informs me for sure.
Well, yeah, I think it's interesting when I look at the music, the impact of music on Luke Cage, but then I look at Moonlight, and in Moonlight there was just this amazing use of silence and sound design that allowed the actors many times to be as powerful without the dialogue as with the dialogue.
Right.
Talk about how you took that on as an actor in Moonlight.
Well, we didn't have any rehearsal time.
Okay.
Like none.
Yeah.
And which is not that abnormal, especially for indie films. But what Barry did was, so with speaking specifically about Juan, my character, there's probably 15 minutes of footage that didn't make the cut of the film, because you're starting to, organize your footage and cut things together and see the arc kind of play out. You start looking at what you need, and you start trimming fat or things that feel like that they divert the story or whatnot. But in the process of filming it, we shot the film in 25 days.
Wow.
I may have worked 7 days, maybe.
Wow.
Naomi Harris did her parts, and she's in all 3 chapters. She did hers in 3 days. It was a really intense. Yeah, but in doing all that, and speaking on the maybe 15 minutes of extra footage or scene work that I personally did, it was a lot of just sitting in space with the other characters. So usually I was working with Little or Chiron, who is played by Alex Hibbert, who was at that time maybe 11 years old.
Yeah.
And we would be just driving around in the city. We'd be improvising a bit, or just in space, just sitting around, and Barry's filming us. So we had to be as alive as you and I would have to be if we were sitting in your studio, and maybe you're working on something, maybe you're not. Just how friends sit in space. And so, and without dialogue, just being together. And in that, you have to have real thoughts. You have to have real things going on. And then you incorporate that into a scene where something is really supposed to happen. The director, Barry Jenkins, is intending for something to happen. But you mix that and you stretch that out with people processing information, processing emotions, with characters who are all emotionally intelligent, that you have something, I think, especially for these characters who look like they look, coming from the world they come from, it's just not something we're accustomed to seeing on camera. And it's just played out and put together in a really beautiful and unique way. And I hope it's something that encourages other filmmakers to take a similar approach, because it's really beautiful getting to just see people think sometimes. So it's that's my favorite part of that.
Yeah,
that's my favorite quality in in Moonlight is having an opportunity to see these characters process things in silence, and then sometimes it is supported by Nicholas's by Nick's score, sound design, which is just amazing.
Well, Moonlight is just amazing work, and your work on that has been recognized by so many. And the film itself has been recognized by so many different groups, including the Critics' Choice Awards, which I get a chance to be a part of. And Man, I just appreciate your time, Mahershala. I really
Thank you.
appreciate your time, and I just want to give you a
Thank
chance to
you.
answer one final question. Any lessons from
Yes.
a director that you've taken that you feel have provided a foundation for you, or if there's anything else that you'd just like to share with our audience today?
Well, I will say that sometimes I'm on set or working on something, and well, there's two things I would say. Sometimes I'm working on set, and I just feel like I'm not hitting it. Like it's not clicking, and I find myself feeling a little bit frustrated. And then I just have to think about just telling the truth.
Yeah.
And if you and just encourage yourself to tell the truth, I think your body, your mind, your spirit knows what that is. Like it just does. And usually, if I can remember to tell myself to just tell the truth, from my character's point of view, obviously, then it usually kind of clicks. It kind of sets in, and it tends to work. And then the other thing I'll say, which another actor shared with me years ago, and this is something that's really stuck with me for 20 years now. I was an apprentice at California Shakespeare Festival. I was right out of school. It was my first time really getting to really act in a concentrated way, and I felt like I had it's great to be natural at something, but that's just a beginning, honestly. Like I strongly believe in training and teachers and tutelage. And I'd really only been acting a few months, but I was doing well at Cal Shakes. And we had a day where we were working with, or on one of these days, we were working with one of the professional actors, and again, I was an apprentice, and so there's a group of us sitting around, and this gentleman got up and he says, "How many of you are here to be rich and famous?" And we kind of looked at each other, like, what is he? And we were actually rehearsing, in Oakland at that time, but the Shakespeare Festival was maybe 20 miles away in an area called Orinda.
Okay.
And and I think in my heart, at least at that time, and in my mind, like part of it was like, man, I want to be famous. I want to be, and no, I don't know, man. I was really young. I was 22, and he said, and if any of you are here to be rich and famous, this is a good time for you to get out.
Wow.
And I remember being a little surprised, a little offended by that. And then he went on to really explain and share that it's about the work.
Yeah.
It's just about doing the work.
Yeah.
It's about trying to be excellent at the work and doing it for the sake and love of the work. And as a result of, if you do that, if you really approach it from the standpoint of trying to do the best work you could do, working to tell the truth, working to be an ally to this larger narrative, an offshoot of that is that perhaps you will be excellent at it one day.
Yeah.
And an offshoot of being excellent at something is, people will know who you are. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's really just purely about just do the work.
Yeah.
And I try to remind myself of that. I try to take that spirit into every kind of phase of my career, every set that I'm on, every opportunity that I have, that especially now that things have definitely, expanded in some way, and there's more of an awareness of my work, that I think now more than ever it's really important for me and for other young actors out there, or any field that you're in. You could be, the fame is or notoriety or celebrity can be attached to so many different, you can be a celebrity doctor, but it's really about your work.
Yes.
Your work. Just do the work and do the best work you can do, and do it for the sake of the love of the work. And all the other stuff just is that's icing on the cake, but that's not the cake, So that's the thing that I would really offer up.
Wow, I appreciate that. Mahershala
Thank you.
Ali, our guest today, right here on Cinemascene. You can find his work in things from The Curious Case of Benjamin Button to Hunger Game films, House of Cards, Luke Cage, Free State of Jones, Hidden Figures, and Moonlight. Man, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
Man, for me as well. And I continue to look forward to following you wherever you go, man.
Thank you.
All right.
I look forward to doing more and hopefully getting to talk to you again in the future.
Oh, I'd love that as well. For all of our listeners,
All right.
thank you so much for listening to WGWG and Cinemascene right here on Gardner-Webb University Radio. For this week, that is a wrap.